What is the dumbest way you've ever made money? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. An American gentleman asked me for directions and gave me a $1 bill as souvenir. This was in post-communist Hungary, and I was maybe 10. I thought I won the lottery. I still have it. Story 2. Reading books to my neighbor's parrot. He was depressed and needed company, apparently. I was 10. I enjoyed that work very much. Story 3. I got a job as a fantasy model with long flowing hair, where I modeled for B-grade American fantasy novels. Paid okish, not well. I also signed away my rights like an idiot, so occasionally turn up riding a horse or casting a spell. Also, once turned up on a book cover with a lady, and my GF went, "Who the fudge is that?" Photoshop, my dear, Photoshop. I tried to read one of the books and it started, "He was not traditionally handsome." Ouch. Story 4. About 10 years ago, I downloaded one of those Clash of Clans style app games. This was before the pay-to-win model had arisen, so I played the game for about a year and was actually pretty good at it and managed to get into one of the top clans. After a year or so, though, the pay-to-win model began to rear its ugly head and ruin the game. I saw the writing on the wall and decided it was time to hang it up. Now, I had never spent a dime on this game, but I knew that a lot of the big spenders would sell their accounts when they quit in an attempt to recoup some of their losses. I knew my account wasn't at that level, but I figured it was worth a try. I figured if I could get even 10, I would be happy. I was in no rush to sell it though, so I figured I would start very unrealistically high and then slowly go down on my list price. I ended up listing it on a third-party site starting at $500. Within 12 hours, I had a guy counter offer at $350. I was blown away. I wasn't about to negotiate with that and jumped all over it. To this day, I still can't believe that I had fun playing a free game for a year and then sold my account for $350, TLDR. I played a free mobile app game for a year and then sold my account for $350. Answer, I sold my TF2 backpack for around $600 when I needed money. I was a big trader and unboxer for a while and could get box keys for under $1 or trade items and sell for keys. Only traded with verified people on the trade sites, so I never got scammed and had good rep. I think my Stormy Fez sold for like $150 on its own. That was before they took off the silent decloaking. I probably only spent a total of $50 over a couple-year period, but it was nice to have that to sell when I needed it. Story 5. Forgot to submit my self-assessment tax return for a year. I owed zero tax. Got fined $100. Appealed it. Was successful. Got paid $100. 10 back. Thanks, HMRCX. Answer, I once received an underpayment of taxes from the state for something like a few dollars, which in receiving the payment, I owed a few pennies in taxes, which I didn't know, and then the state tried to fine me $50 for not paying the taxes. It was amazing. Luckily, they just cleared it, but owing a fee on taxes because they underpaid me just blew my mind. Story 6. Tutoring a kid in math who was far smarter in math than his mother thought. He didn't do the homework because he wanted to play video games. He aced all the tests and quizzes, but homework was 50 of the grades, so he was getting a C in math. Mother basically paid me $20 an hour to make sure he did his homework, which he finished in about 5 minutes. We then played video games for the next 55 minutes, and whenever the mother would check on us, I would say something mathematical, then he would say something mathematical, and I would say exactly, now you've got it. I felt bad taking the money from the mom, but as a poor college kid, 20 is 20. Story 7. In the 90s, I had some money spare, and the British government was attempting to stop the falling below a certain level against the US. On the radio in the mornings, day after day, serious experts were saying it couldn't hold out against the markets. I converted all my cash into US. 2 weeks later, I converted it all back into S and made 10K. I literally did nothing except change some currency. To be honest, I wasn't the big winner. George Soros made $1 billion. Story 8. I once crashed my truck on the freeway. Due to a faulty road, I got a big payout. Don't worry, guys. And when I was all shaken and like, holy crap, and pulling over into the grass on the side of the road, I stepped out of the truck on shaky legs, and there was just a $20 bill. Crisp and new. Just sitting there. I thought I must have imagined it, but I took it as a good sign. And then insurance inexcusably overpaid what my truck was worth, and I got a much better truck for free and $20. Dumb. Effective, but dumb. Story 9. My offer letter was wrong. I asked for a one-time sign-on bonus since I was leaving my match at my previous job. HR agreed, but then, instead of doing it as a bonus, they added it to my salary. I didn't say anything. 2 years later during an audit, They caught it. The CEO finds out and says, well, even with his raise last year, he still is worth it. Never had to pay it back since it was an HR screw-up, and I'm good at my job. Answer, I was a contractor for a while doing IT. I think I was making around $50K at the time, hourly pay, but worked out to about $50K annually. They wanted to renew my contract, and I told my contract company I should get 10 more. I thought I was worth another 10K annually. They went and talked to the company and came back and said they got my 9, as in 9 more an hour. And if that was okay, yep, that's about 19K more annually. It was also around Y2K time, so overtime was always there too. Story 10. I worked at a recording studio, and one of the engineers was working on a radio commercial. The spot called for a bit of dialogue between a VO talent and a bird whistling. The client figured we could just use SFX for the bird responses, but nothing was working. The engineer left the session for a bit to get some air, and he told me what was going on. Not to brag, but a pretty good whistler. I started mimicking what the bird should sound like, and his eyes went wide. He dragged me into the session to present what I did. I ended up being hired on the spot. I whistled for one commercial, which happened to be a union gig. So I signed a contract that basically let me join for the day. I got about $800 for the day, but also received residual checks for a couple more years after that. Whistling earned me about $3K in the end. Story 11. I spent about an hour 12 years ago making a simple t-shirt design and posted it on Cafe Press. I still get 100, 150 a couple times a year from it. It ain't much, but it's always a fun surprise to receive the check. Answer, I did a similar thing about 5 years ago. I designed a few t-shirts, mostly as an exercise to try to learn graphic design. They sold okay, but very quickly, dozens of copycats sprung up. I figured I had already made more sales than I ever expected to, so I just retired from the t-shirt business. Cut to today, I still get occasional emails letting me know I've sold shirts, stickers, pins, etc. Last I checked, I'm still earning good coffee money every month, which is mind-blowing to me. Story 12. Shoveling snow. Yeah, I know how it sounds, but I was at my grandma's house, and she had this shovel that was curved, so if you held it right, the snow would curl up and move just like a snowplow. I was like 6 or 7 years old. I thought it was so cool, so I just went around her block, clearing the sidewalks, having a blast, because it's just like the big snowplows. Before I know it, people are coming out of the houses and giving me money. Story 13. Guy I knew asked me to drive a bag to Oklahoma City and pick up another bag. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't really care. When I got back, he handed me $5K in cash. Still to this day, never knew what was in the bag or how much money I picked up. He got popped a few years later for distribution and served 15 years of a 50-year sentence. Answer, so here in Atlanta have Dragon Con every year over Labor Day weekend, a huge pop culture convention attended by 80-some people from all over. Saw some ads on associated Facebook groups from people who were willing to pay for others to drive sealed boxes from wherever to Atlanta. It was amazing to see how many people were willing to help. They were assuming the boxes contained costumes or whatever. Call me cynical, but I wouldn't make that assumption. Story 14. Once turned up to an office for an interview, however, they gave me a pass, desk, and access to a laptop and archives after I walked in the door. They kept calling me by my name, so I never thought anything of it. I was there for a couple of weeks indexing and digitizing old documents, and once I'd finished the allocation of work, my temp contract was up, as it was only 2 weeks. On leaving, they were going to cut me a check and asked, "How do you spell random surname?" I said, "How would I know I'm called?" The shock on their face as they realized they had given a job to the wrong guy and had called me for the job instead of the knockback. Easiest but dumbest way of making money every... Story 15. In junior high, I bought cinnamon oil at a pharmacy on the walk home. I soaked toothpicks in it and sold them for 5 cents each. I made a lot of money off one bottle considering the cost of it and the boxes of toothpicks. Story 16. My married boss, who I used to work for, saw me with friends at a bar one night and pulled me aside and told me to come talk to him in his car. I was young, dumb, and tipsy, so I happily went with him. He was talking about some shoot about how I'm smart and a very good worker, and he wants me to be successful, and he gave me 100 from his wallet. I was, again, very dumb. So I took it and said, "Oh darn, thanks," and hopped out of his car and went back to my friends. He never brought it up. Story 17. When I was at university, I used to do campus tours and meet and greets for new students. In the UK, this is. The university I went to was in a city called Leicester. In the city center, there was a street called Every Street. At the end, on the corner of that street and another, was a branch of Barclays Bank. So I used to bet all the freshers 20 that there was a Barclays Bank on the corner of every street in Leicester. It was a 15-minute walk from the campus to the bank, and they'd get smug because of all the intersections and street corners we'd pass, until we reached the bank and I made them pay up. Admittedly, I spent almost all the money I made on booze within the first month, but still totally worth it. Story 18. I used to get paid to read palms at parties. Despite my entertainment purposes only disclaimer, people always took it too seriously, even when they had seen me doing magic shows. Apparently watching me do card tricks for an hour wasn't enough to convince people that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't actually a psychic. I started feeling guilty about spreading nonsense, so I had to quit. It was such easy money too. Stupid parents raising me with stupid ethics. Story 19. Fujifilm had big supply chain issues that resulted in some of their premium films being unavailable for the past year. I had over 200 rolls of medium format film stored in the fridge for a few years, sold about half of them last month for 80 a roll. Story 20. Betting on DWAC, the merger partner for the Trump social network Truth Social. I had it in my head after Trump got kicked off of Twitter that he would start his own media company and use a SPAC to do it. As luck would have it, I saw the PR before the market opened. I put about $6,000 into it on Thursday morning, most before the market opened, with some for my husband and some for my brother, who was headed my way for a visit. I missed the top on Friday morning due to a shower, so I sold some and waited to sell the rest until Monday morning. $60,000 won for me and my loved ones. We ate well that weekend. Thank you, Trumpers, for the cash. Story 21. When I was an elder teen, I went to the Walmart Supercenter in the middle of the night because my boyfriend at the time was with me, were bored and couldn't sleep. When we came out, it was quite windy. The parking lot was pretty empty. I started seeing papers fly by, and it was cash, mostly 20 bills. I started running around like a crazy person trying to grab all the bills I could. All in all, I was able to salvage about 700 while the majority blew off into the darkness, neighboring swampy wooded area. We searched around for a human that it could have belonged to, but it was only us. Answer. My bro worked in a gift shop. Super chill job. He just sat at the register reading books, and once an hour or so, he'd sell a candy bar. There was an ATM right across the hall. One day, it just started spitting out 20 bills. No one was around, so he gathered it all up and went back to his chair. He said he kept all of the cash for about a week, expecting someone to ask about it. No one ever did. It was about 800. Story 22. Focus groups. In college, I managed to make quick cash by doing marketing focus groups. Sometimes it would take an hour. Sometimes they were full and they'd give you full payment for showing up. Story 23. I played a stereotypical thief, black clothing, mask, etc., in security system commercial. It was fun experience. I made 200 PLN. I was trying to rob a safe and steal a bike. Funniest thing is my face is to this day in the background photo on FB of this security system page. Story 24. My dad thinks water dowsing is real. So I was outside pretending he was 10F'd off of his guests, and the neighbor came over and asked if I could do it on his property for his new well. I tried explaining I was just being a jerk, but he said 100 was on the table. So I just did the same magical crap on his property and got 100. Answer, I'm so confused with dowsing. It's obviously a bunch of horse crap, I know that. There's no logical explanation for how it could possibly work. Yet at the same time, I worked for a water distribution company for 2 years, and the old man there would go out to a random pasture, at least weekly, for waterline locates, and he got it right on the money darn near every single time. I don't understand. Story 25. Not me, but a friend of mine helped people out with unemployment benefits during the pandemic, mid-2020 in the US. Loads of people were applying, and he would help them get the paperwork right and everything. Nothing illegal, never lied or anything, just helped them with the paperwork. His initial investment was a couple of $100 for ads. He hired an accountant on commission and basically sat back while the money rolled in. He eventually had a falling out with his partner, but he made over $50K in 2 months. Sad part ID, he offered me the part of the accountant. My share would have been roughly 3 hours a day for 8 to 10 months, and I would have made around $1 million. I declined the offer because I was busy building a career in software development. I only found out how much of a loser I am after being laid off and struggling to find another job. Story 26. When I was in HS, some friends and I did face painting at a mall for little kids on Halloween. Fast forward 10 years, I'm serving in a bar, and my boss asked if I could do face painting in the bar on St. Patrick's Day. Why not? I set up in one of the booths, and even though there was no charge, the customers were just throwing cash at me. I did St. Patrick from some guy's church handout. A few more customers wanted little leprechaun footprints across their faces. It was a blast. Story 27. There was this old men's club, Elks or Shriners I think, that put out an ad in the paper offering to pay $100 to any two people who would be willing to perform Abbott Costello's, who's on first routine at one of their next meetings. I was in a high school and got one of my buddies to agree to do it, so we contacted them and offered to do it. The guy said we were the only ones to answer the ad, and yes. The meeting was in a couple weeks, so we worked our jerk off to get every beat down. We dressed the part and everything. When we got to the meeting hall, we were meeting the people that hired us in person for the first time. They were super nice. We performed the routine perfectly, got a thunderous applause, and then people were just shaking our hands and giving us money after. We cleared about $800. I played Costello's part, by the way. Story, go to 28, editing resumes. I got my degree in communications and technical writing. People would send the most outrageous resumes, like 14 jobs with a few weeks between them. Long-winded about me, like it was a dating profile. Some even included a photo of what they looked like. Some photos were professionally done, others were obviously selfies, or even worse, the camera on their phone pointed at the bathroom mirror with flash on. I would always take the payment first for like $100, concise it down to a single page with the actual relevant information that the hiring manager or HR rep wants to see. I always delivered with a one-day turnaround. Some people loved it, and they were able to get into prestigious university or jobs because we were in community college. Others disliked them because I took away their personality. Besides, I sold homemade edibles, gummies, and other sweets because plant substance wasn't legit business yet. Story 29. I drove 15 kilometers with a live pig in the back of an old Volvo 940 station wagon to settle a bet between two farmers. Story 30. It was snowing heavily, so school was canceled, but the mail truck still came. My younger sister bet me she could race through the waist-high snow to the mailbox and back to the front door faster than me. We took off and she easily beat me, but the rules are you gotta touch the first destination before you run back or it's cheating. So she was racing past me and I still needed to touch the mailbox. I got to it and noticed a crumpled up piece of paper. It was a 100 bill. My sister was waiting for me at the front door and I showed her the money. We raced back to the mailbox and found a second 100 bill. Ran inside going, Mom, look. Mom very slyly put the money in her purse and said, we'll do something fun with this next weekend. So really, it's the dumbest way I ever made my mom 200. Story 31. My brother stalks deals on power tools like a hawk. I'll occasionally get a text from him telling me to go to my local Home Depot and buy every unit of X available, usually at a 90 discount. Sometimes these are errors, sometimes just deep clearance. I'll sell these on FB Marketplace for a decent profit. Christmas Eve, I get a text. Milwaukee blower kits for like 10, usually a couple hundred. I head over and literally fill my car. I usually snap the photos for the FB Marketplace ad in the parking lot just to save time, not allow myself to procrastinate. Immediately, some dude messages me asking how many I had, how much I would take, etc. He's really close by, ends up coming to the literal Home Depot parking lot and buying all of the units I had at about 50 of full value each. After emptying my car into his, I went back inside and bought the rest of the units and refilled my car. Sold those over time as normal. Easiest, dumbest 3K I've ever made. Story 32. Back when Star Wars EP1 was released, Lay's Chips had a game with SW scratch cards, which included money prizes as well as toys in Lay's bags. It was possible to see the text behind the scratch-off material by using a pocket laser. Was able to win 400, a lot of money at that time in Eastern Europe, over the course of the promo, along with a bunch of toys and chips packs. Story 33. When CD burners came out, it'd borrow CDs from people and burn copies and sell them to other people. Lenders got a discount. I just sold everybody's music to everybody else and made thousands. I was backlogged for weeks. Story 34. I bought BTC to buy Steam games. Just as I did it, Steam stopped BTC payment. To withdraw the BTC into cash, the crypto exchange required me to take self-photo for authentication. I was too lazy to do that. 7 years later, my BTC was up 1,000. It ain't much, but LOL. Story 35. When I was a kid, a guy was giving 5 to anyone who filled out a survey at the mall. Took 2 minutes. 5 was pretty nice in the 1980s if you were 9 years old. Story 36. I bought a pair of Nike Off-White Dunk Lows from the SenKR app. There were 50 colorways. 1 in 50 were uniquely different and more valuable. It was a blind box situation, so you didn't know what color you were getting. I never received them. I'm guessing they were stolen by the delivery person or something. I told Nike, got a refund, and then randomly, I did receive them and wasn't charged, and they were the one colorway, so I sold them on StockX for more than $1,000. More silly money. I was once an extra on the hit television show Franklin and Bash. It wasn't much, but it was dumb. When I was about 13, I made a really shoot GeoCities website and made 10 or so off of ad revenue. In high school, I kept a binder full of Magic, the Gathering cards. I didn't really play, but the kids who did knew I was basically a traveling card peddler. In the early 2000s, while website building was still very difficult for the average person, I built portfolio websites for colleagues trying to find new jobs. I could go on. I have always enjoyed finding unique, legal, and quick ways to turn a buck. Story 37. Years back, I had a deal with an online casino where I get paid 10 per download of their casino software using my affiliate link. They didn't even have to deposit. I wrote some roulette bot software that just automatically does a roulette betting scheme called Martingale. It directs the user to the casino via my affiliate link upon installation. At the same time, I found a software download website that you can deposit money and promote your software. Found that if I deposited money once, I could hit refresh on the confirmation page multiple times and get 1,000s in my advertising account. I ran my software advert on every single slot of that website, and it ran for about a week before it was caught. Made 1,000s that month. Casino ended the deal after the first payout when they didn't make enough to cover it. Story 38. Found an old sewing machine in the basement and fixed it up. Had to learn it in order to fix it. GF at the time then buys me a new singer. I fixed things here and there, mainly uniform stuff as I was a correctional officer at the time. It's very relaxing, and I love every opportunity to play with the different stitch settings and patterns. People started to notice my shirts were constantly looking great, with sturdy buttons that never seemed to loosen. Your old girl fixed that shirt up for you? No? It took me 5 minutes to do with a sewing machine. Cue scoffs and laughter, followed by hushed requests for me to fix things. I literally turned a bit of black thread and a few minutes of work into a small but endless stream of cash, simply because I worked around a bunch of people who were too fragile to ever dare engage in something they thought was unmanly. Somehow they felt that it was the epitome of macho to walk around and whine about how their buttons were missing and how the clothing depot is not accepting tickets right now and that the blue isn't right on certain off-brands which looks tacky. Answer: man, I wish you had been at my facility. We had military-style BDUs with the large and small buttons. I had so many buttons go missing and stabbed myself 100 times trying to hand sew. Finally, I discovered that if you bent a large paper clip in half and then cut the large U off, each end would fit in the large buttonhole. Same with small paper clip in the small buttons. I swear every button in that facility is still being held on with a paper clip. Ha ha ha. Story 39. Sold sand, proppant, to oil companies for ridiculous prices. Sure, we had some made-manufactured ceramic proppant, but sold a lot of just regular, everyday sand. I never did get my head around getting paid $65 more an hour just selling sand. Story 40. I went to a bar with a group of colleagues during a work drinks in West London. Was stood at the bar waiting to order with our DevOps manager. While waiting, a guy slid up next to her and started turning on the flirt. He looked about 12. We're both in our early 30s. At one point, after a minute or so, my colleague said, "Sorry, but you're too young for me." He replied by declaring he was older than that guy she's with. I'd given him space to take his shot. Who am I to cock-block either side? But overhearing this, I immediately bet 10 he was younger than me. An ID check later, he was 21, I was 32, and he willingly handed over a tenner. I ordered myself and the manager drinks as a thanks for free money. The 2 drinks came to $21.60. Easy come, easy go. Story 41. My aunt and I have a bit of a running joke that she always makes sure to get a hug from me, and I've always pretended to not want one, be grossed out. One Thanksgiving, she just offered me 20 if I gave her a hug, which obviously I did and gleefully accepted my 20, even though I could see my uncle steaming a few feet away. Then a couple weeks later, I found out they were a few months behind on mortgage payments. Story 42. My neighbor gave me 20 if I would go and buy a 1 glass of lemonade from their kids' lemonade stand. It even tasted good. Story 43. When I was 12, I sold a pack of gum to my classmate. For 20, my mom thought I stole it from her purse and took it from me. Story 44. I made about 800 Australian dollars betting on the last U.S. election after the key results were in, and it was very obvious Biden was winning. It seems Trump's supporters were still willing to put a bet on, even though their guy had obviously lost. Bought a bunch of parts and built a PC we called Biden. Story 45. In my first year of college, I picked up some side jobs like pet walking, babysitting, and some house cleaning. One man I cleaned for was in his late 60s, very wealthy retired businessman. His wife passed away shortly before I started working at his home. One day out of the blue, he told me he would double my pay if I would dress up while cleaning his house. He handed me an Amazon package, and inside there was some high heels, black stockings, and a garter belt and black thong. He also made it clear there would be no intimacy involved. The next time I cleaned, I wore what he purchased and made some good money, and he kept his word and never tried anything with me. But I did notice the trash basket in his bedroom had a huge amount of toilet tissue. Pretty sure he was self-care. Story 46. I was considering buying a BMW E30 convertible. I was on a test drive and stopped at a gas station to buy something to drink. Dude came up to me and offered the, at the time, equivalent of $1,500 more than the seller was asking. I told the prospective buyer to meet me there 4 hours later when I finished work, paid for the car, transferred ownership with the app, and went and sold the car to the new guy for $1,500 more a few hours later. Story 47. Anti-protest seat warmer. Didn't know what we were being paid for 2.5 days. We'd rock up, hang around for 15 moments, get 50, then get told to go home. Rinse repeat 3 times a day. Then one time some protesters rocked up and we got told to put on these shirts promoting some destructive mining operation and how it would help the economy and provide jobs. We didn't return for the rest of the shifts after we found out what we were being paid to do. Story 48. Buying Beanie Babies in Canada and selling them to collectors in America in the late 90s. Maple the Bear, available only in Canada, would sell for hundreds of dollars across the border. My sister worked at a store that sold them, so we had a large supply at cost. Story 49. When I was younger, one of my friends knew a guy whose girlfriend was working as an adult worker. Guy was naive enough that he thought that guys just paid for an escorts company. He suspected that she was having intimacy with her clients, but he didn't know for sure. He ended up hiring me to find out if all of this was true. For a bonus, he wanted to know if she would perform oral because apparently that is something that wasn't happening with them. I was just a college student at the time, so 100 and some tickets to a Cleveland Browns game were enough for me. X200B, TLDR, I got paid to hire an adult worker. Story 50. Back in 2012, I was quite the stoner, always making little smoking accessories. Cruising through the dollar store one day, an idea came to me. I would buy a 10-pack of plastic bugs or lizards, chop off the head and insert a metal wire, then drill out the body so the head would sit where it should. I sold them to head shops as pipe pokers for $3 a piece, essentially turning one into 30, sold loads of them on Etsy also for more per piece. That blossomed into a nice little paid hobby, and now I make high-end wood smoking accessories. Story 51. I pulled up once in a friend's pickup to a parking lot to take a break from driving and look at my phone to figure out how to get back to his house. All of a sudden, people came up and started loading these political yard signs in the back of his truck. When I got out of my car to ask WTF was going on, a woman says, hi, here's the 2400 one or way to like them placed along X Road. I paused and looked down, and it was a bank envelope full of hundos. I said, gotcha, and drove to the nearest supermarket, went in the back and threw them in the dumpster. Story 52. God offered a federal job that paid 3 times what I was making running a cash register and moving Coke bottles. Took it even though my new wife was 8 months pregnant and it was 600 miles away from everyone we knew. Got to the job, and the first thing I was told was, oh, by the way, that salary we offered you, you are only going to get that for 1 pay period. Then the new COLA kicks in, and you will see a raise of another $1,000. Other very lucky things happened connected to that job change, but this might be the one that fits the question. Story 53. When Samsung recalled the Note 7 for exploding batteries, I purchased 120 of them from people on Craigslist and sold them back to Samsung for profit. Made $50K in profit. Story 54. Worked in a fast food place. There was a guy who used to come in, buy a Coke with a 20, and tell me to keep the change. He would look in my car window and drop cash in my sunroof if my tank was low. This went on for years. One time in the drive-thru, he offered me $100 to kiss my hand. I did it. Story 55. When I was 19, I was in a rehab group for teenagers. Being that we were all pretty serious addicts, this group was less teenage potheads and more tragic end attempts and heroin junkies. Our parents didn't really bat an eye when we took up cigarettes. Lesser of two evils. But most people were under 18, so they couldn't buy their own. It was the year CVS decided to stop selling tobacco products and were selling their cigarettes for 1 or 2 a pack to clear out stock. I bought hundreds and resold them. Literally cleaned out the 2 CVS stores near me. Profit was easily 4 figures because I was selling them with a markup, even though I got them for 80 off. Story 56. Wrote a program to hack the lottery. The guy had an idea he found some pattern in numbers and wanted me to help him by writing a program that would do the calculations he was making by hand. 10 years later, he still hasn't won the lottery. At least it was fun hanging around with him. He is really passionate about what he starts and goes all in. If only he could invest his energy in something more productive. The last time I saw him, he was chasing meteorites. Some of them may have precious metals. Answer: I swear people are obsessed with quick and easy ways to make money. I had a couple of guys who would visit our office every 6 months and pay us to develop apps, websites of stuff that took off 10, 20 years ago. We needed the money, so kept taking the jobs, but felt bad for these dudes thinking they were inventing something big or were on the verge of something spectacular, only to see them crash and burn. Story 57. I had a job where my boss also owned a restaurant. The very big freezer in the restaurant was broken. Every day they would send me with an airdryer to melt the ice accumulated on the radiator so I can turn back the freezer on. I was paid to melt ice with an airdryer. Not even making this up. Story 58. My buddy, bet you $1 you won't flip off the principal when he drives by. Me. Watch this. One day later, principal in front of assembly. We've reinstated paddling as a punishment. To poopers, come with me. Answer: that brought up a repressed memory. Sometime around 7th grade, a buddy said, I'll punch the PE teacher in the stomach for a quarter. I gave him a quarter, thinking he wouldn't do it, and went into science class. It got really quiet. Then there was a loud whack in the hallway, followed by the sound of a quarter rolling down the hall. Then the PE teacher stuck his head in the classroom, asking which one of us paid Jeff to punch him. Yes, got a paddling that day. Story 59. Sold gum in boarding school to elementary school kids for 1 apiece. Couldn't do it anymore when it got attention. Kids started giving 2 apiece. Story 60. Paid through my last semester of college by boosting people's accounts in Overwatch. Half of that was from one guy who kept coming back, despite dropping from master to bronze several times. Guy really still thought his team was holding him back. Story 61. I grew up a military kid. Dad was in the Air Force. I was also a smoker in high school. Back then, early 90s, cigarettes on base were extremely cheap. I think they weren't taxed at all. So for example, you could get a carton, 10 packs of Camels for $6. To make it even better, there was this long period where Camel would have a 3 off manufacturer coupon on the carton that you could use for the purchase. I get my older brother to buy me a carton, then it'd sell packs at school for 1 EA, which was about half of what a pack would cost off base. So fellow teens could buy from me without ID and could do so much cheaper than if they bought from a store. In hindsight, I should have charged $2. Still easiest money ever. LO1. Story 62. I was let go in the middle of the project. I agreed to finish it in a week for them for 3x my monthly pay. They paid me before sacking me. They agreed. Story 63. I've studied in Singapore for 1 semester as an exchange student in 2012. My Chinese lecturer used to work as a voice coach and Chinese pronunciation consultant for the Singaporean film industry. One day after class, she asked if anyone would be interested in a hand modeling job. It was between me and a really handsome guy who financed his studies by modeling for Abercrombie. 120 SGD was too little for him for 45 minutes of doing app gestures on a fake iPad on camera, so I gladly took it. Story 64. Probably not quite the answer you're looking for. I used to work at a greenhouse and they offered us $20 an hour under the table to help pick out rocks in a separate farm that had been plowed recently. When the Amish guy said hell no, it probably should have been a red flag. Worst day of my life. Walking through ankle-deep dirt all day, legs are just jelly by noon. They even paid us for taking like a 2-hour lunch. There were 5 of us, and at the end of the day, they handed all of us $200 in cash. Never the fudge again. Story 65. I know someone who married some rich foreign guy's daughter for a year. She got her citizenship. He got like 10 grand. Story 66. I joined an MLM in the late 90s to the early 20s without knowing how toxic and predatory this practice was. I earned money because I basically misunderstood my upline. You see, when you are new in their pipeline, you are supposed to invite and recruit downlines to be part of your team's pipeline on your right side. But I invited a friend and placed him on my left side, and he invited more and placed on my left side, and so on. And I earned money more than my upline. They, my upline and her uplines, noticed this after 3 months and accused me of scamming them. Yes, they called me a scammer who deliberately placed my friend on my left side to make sure I earned more than them. This was a time when cell phones are not yet prevalent in my country and that internet are only reserved for companies and businesses. So the harassment I received were more on landline calls, uninvited house visits, and eventually my uplines conspired to deactivate my MLM account. But I did make 10x of my investment, but that traumatized me on MLMs. Story 67. I'm 100 honest and not joking nor lying. I once woke up from sleep with a sudden urge to play bingo. There was something telling me to go and play. So I get up, hop to my computer, and open the website I usually play on, played a few rounds for around a total of $20–30, and within few minutes, I end up winning $1,200. Cashed them amount immediately. Story 68. I got 5 for ordering chicken nuggets at McDonald's once. Late night, I go and get a 10-piece McNugget for $5. I'm the only one in the drive-through line. I pull up to the window, expecting to pay, but before I do, they hand me a salad. I tell them that I didn't order a salad, just the McNuggets, and I haven't paid yet. The employee looks very confused. She goes away with the salad and comes back to tell me that the salad was removed from my order. She hands me the McNuggets, but doesn't take the money. Again, she seems very confused. She goes away, and this time the manager comes to the window. He aggressively tells me that the salad was removed from my bill. I try to tell him that I haven't paid for anything yet. He, in a hurry, hands me a $5 bill as a refund for the salad. I took the 5, the free McNuggets, and drove off. Story 69. My son was in middle school, and teachers could hand out Eagle coupons to students for good work, good citizenship in the school, or if they assisted someone, essentially encouraging students to be kind and helpful and support the school community. The Eagle coupons could be used at the school bookstore to buy things. My son, however, was always finding ways to game the system. He began counterfeiting the Eagle coupons. He turned in his counterfeit coupons and got a pencil topper of some sort. He was playing with the pencil top pans. A friend asked if he could see it. Give me a quarter and I'll let you see it for 5 seconds. The friend handed over a quarter. My son handed over the topper and 5 seconds later snatched it back. The next day, the friend asked what it would take to buy this topper. My son said 5. The kid handed over 5 and my son handed over the topper. He repeated the process a couple more times using counterfeit coupons to buy things and then sell them. The toys were generally under $2, so he was always making a profit even if he purchased them. I found out about his business after the school year had ended. The school abolished the Eagle coupon idea the following year. Story 70. Smoked catnip out of a bong for $50 when I was 15. The rule was I had to clear the bowl in one hit. Luckily, it was a small bowl. That was the worst pain in my life. I swear I almost died. Story 71. I can't believe how funny this post is coming up today. Facebook Marketplace. Outboard motor 300 Facebook Marketplace. Inflatable boat 200, total 500. Together, that shoot sells for minimum 1,000. Last 2 years, I have made $2K profit for doing no work. Literally just bought another boat and motor today, and by next weekend, that shoot will be back up on FB Marketplace for $1,200, and I'll take the first lowball for anything close to $1,000. It's money for jam. Story 72. Right now, I'm working a shutdown at a plant in Canada, and it's so mismanaged and no one knows what's going on most of the time. You'll do 2 hours of work during a 12-hour day, making a large hourly wage, with time and a half coming after 8 hours. Double time after 10 hours. Saturdays are time and a half for the first 8, double after 8. Sundays are full double. We also worked last Monday, Labor Day, and got double all day that day. Hardly any work to do, and they're just throwing money at us. Plus, most of the workforce that gets hired for these few weeks are from out of town, 150 kilometers away, so we stay in cheap hotels, and they also pay us $165 per day live out allowance, $25 a day meal allowance. Story 73. When the state quarters first came out, I was at the bank and asked for a roll of them. Delaware, it was the first state, so I had a full roll of Delaware quarters still in the Fed wrapper. It cost me 10 since it was just a currency at the bank. I think it was a year later that I sold that roll of quarters on eBay for 60. Story 74. I realized recently that a contract job I did for an extremely disorganized company has been paying me like 15 every 2 weeks since my contract ended several months ago. No idea how that amount occurred to someone. I wonder if they'll ever figure it out. Story 75. Heard some friends talk about working as a cam girl, was a poor student, and wanted to try it myself. I never went private pictures, didn't show any body part, but had men paying me just to talk to me and tell me how much they loved my eyes. Also did a session with 2 of my girlfriends where we just sat in our bras, drank wine, and acted like idiots. and made 150 in 45 minutes. I quit as soon as one of the guys knew my name and where I lived, deleted the account, and haven't done it since. Story 76. My company was getting rid of junk and selling it online if it had any value at all. We had about 20 bags of these copper lugs, and I told my boss they should just sell them at scrap value. He ignored me and put them on eBay at 50 a bag. So I bought all 20 and sold them at the scrap dealer for about 180, 200 a bag. When I came in saying I bought and sold them, he was pissed. Fudge you, Greg, haha. Story 77. When iPhone 4 came out, I accidentally ordered 2 instead of 1. Instead of canceling my order, I just went on with it thinking that I'll just sell the other off. I then realized that iPhone 4 is facing severe shortages and shops are offering almost twice the price for a sealed unit. I just kept ordering online using multiple email and credit cards and sold it off to resellers. I earned around $40K for 4 months by just buying and selling brand new iPhone 4. Story 78. A few years back, I put about a cup of coffee's worth of money into crypto just to try it out. The next day I checked and the price had doubled, so I cashed out and got myself a free cup of coffee for the day. Story 79. I have indeed sucked male body part for money to prove a point. 2 times. It was 100 the first time, 50 the second. Story 80. We weren't allowed to chew gum in my elementary school, so I would sell dental floss that was flavored like mint or cinnamon. Kids would chew on it because it had flavor. I sold it for $25 per foot or 1 for a yard. I sold more yards than I did feet. The kids weren't the smartest in math. Eventually, the principal tracked me down and said, "We know what you're doing. There's dental floss all over the school grounds and you need to stop." Story 81. Lawell. I used to go to LAN parties back in the day. Some dudes were sharing terabytes of adult content. I got the idea to copy a bunch of it and then sell it to people. I used to get paid per 100 eerie. It was a solid model and I ended up filling up hard drives for people. It turns out dudes really liked adult content. Ha ha ha. Story 82. Options trading. Bought in morning for 2K, sold in afternoon for 8K. Have done a similar thing 3 other times. What makes it dumb is there was never any research. Just a hunch that always works out. Story 83. Hippie days, hitching across the country. Stopped and worked part-time for Folgers Coffee in Texas. Job in semi-automated days was to stand for hours dropping coupons into the jars as they raced by the assembly line. What made my day was having to listening to a full-time dude next to me talking endlessly about the Nancy Sinatra fan club he was a member of. Story 84. There was a site where you could gamble for bitcoins. You wagered a bunch and had provably fair odds. The clue, there was a chat where your winnings were announced. So my strategy was to watch who won a lot and then ask them to celebrate my making it rain by sending Bitcoin to people in the chat. One time I got 1,000 for writing, "Romania is the best." Brilliant P. Story 85. Easy money in 5 steps. 1. Buy something off Facebook Marketplace. 2. Use nice camera and take great photos. 3. Write a good description. 4. Relist on Facebook for double the price you paid. 5. Profit. Seriously, it's easy extra money for little work. You do have to know what sells better and be willing to sit on product for a bit, but other than that, it's cake. Story 86. In the early 80s, I got laid off. Jobs for university grabs with no special training were few and far between. I purchased chimney sweeping equipment, started with all the relatives and gave them the service for free. I trained on them, in other words, knocked on doors and handed out flyers. I was getting whole streets at a time, at 40-30 minutes. At the end, I was getting 90 and worked only in one wealthy area. I'm sitting in a very pricey hotel in Galway, Ireland today, many more days in other parts, and then it's winter vacation time. Sure, I got dirty. I also got showered every day, and there was zero stress. Story 87. After selling chocolate bars for charity to my neighbors as a kid, I realized I could make money and went around saying the same charity line selling homemade cookies. Didn't really know what charity was or what the words in the sales pitch I was taught actually meant. Story 88. I was a human pincushion, sorta. Participated in a medical research study testing out substances. There is inherent risk, but I needed money pretty badly. Story 89. Buying Steam games for friends who don't have access to credit cards since my mom trusted me with hers. Charged an extra $10-15 for purchases. Essentially, I gift them games. Oh, Story 90. In the 8th grade, a kid sold speed for $5 each. He kept it very hush-hush and denied it if someone asked about it in public. Someone told the DARE officer or principal or something. Dude was selling Altoids. Story 91. Count cars taking different roads near a football field before construction in the area. 20 an hour like 15 years ago. Now that have automatic counters. Story 92. Played a disc golf tournament. No one hit an ace in my division, so the tournament director used a random number generator to determine the recipient of the ace pot, and I won 355. Story 93. One day I was down in Philly for a work meeting with a couple work buddies. After the meeting, we decided to stop at a bar and have a few drinks. Well, my one friend has sort of a Napoleon complex and started getting some beer muscles and wanted to slap fight. Basically like that stupid power slap shoot going on. For a couple hours I refused, as my friend, and he's half my size. Well, while we were walking back to the car, we carpooled, he pulled me into an alley and basically said, "Let's fudge go, time to slap fight." I was a few beers deep and finally just said, "Fudge it. If you want to do this, then we'll do it." So we're in this alley kind of squaring up, and a few guys walking by saw it and thought we were actually going to fight. We explained what was going on and they still wanted to watch. So round one starts. I let my boy go first. It was the polite thing to do. He hits me, I barely flinch. The two guys watching and our two other work friends start cracking up and causing a ruckus. And after I go shoot, really gets wild. I gotta admit, I'm shocked I didn't drop him because I hit him hard. I thought we were done, but he wants to go again. Now at this point, there's a small crowd forming around us. The two original guys that saw what was going on start taking bets and shoot. Round two starts, basically same outcome. I was on some Captain America, I can do this all day shoot, and I can tell my boy was in some pain. We have about 20 people around us in this alley now. Round three starts, and when it's my turn, my boy turned and kind of ducked, and I slapped him in the back of the head. I had a previous broken bone in my hand from a scrap years prior. I thought I rebroke it. Crazy pain. But my boy taps out and can barely stand up. After that, one of the original dude walks up to me and hands me a crisp 100 bill. I guess that was my pot from all the betting going on. Couldn't believe it. Paid for all my food and drinks that day and gave some to my buddy Lowell. Story 94. I was on a field trip with my class. I was around 10 to 12 years old, and I picked up a piece of trash and threw it in the bin. An elderly man came up to me and handed me what would be 2 from my currency. He said that I made him believe in the younger generation, as he saw so many others just walk past it and not do anything. BDTW, the trash was like 10-20 feet from the bin. Story 95. When I was very little, around 3, I would visit my grandparents and they would take me out for walks around their neighborhood. My pappy told me that when I walk, I should look for money on the ground. He reached down and picked up a penny from the sidewalk. I started finding coins pretty often. When I got older, my Nana confided that he would purposely walk in front of me, dropping coins for me to find. He passed away when I was 5. To this day, if I find a coin laying somewhere, I pick it up and think of him. Story 96. In the 90s, I stuck cards in telephone boxes around London for personal services. You go out around midnight to 2 a.m., then go somewhere and crash for a few hours, then go out again at 4 after the cleaners had gone round. Easy money. Story 97. I used to be required to hold really good health insurance due to my work. I had to go into the hospital for a week, and I believe they paid out $600 per day on top of first-class benefits. Story 98. Not my story, but when I was in the 5th grade, a guy was paid $2 to date me. 2 singular dollar bills for 1 hour. I would say that was a dumb idea and a dumb way to make little money. Obviously, I did not pay him. I was interested in him, and some other girl decided that would be a funny joke to pull on me. Story 99. I used to work at a gas station, minimum wage and rather boring. I put a tip jar on the counter. I wrote on this jar, "I want a pizza." If anyone asked about it, I said quite honestly that it was a gag just to see what would happen. Lo and behold, I made about 40 that day. I did not see a single person drop money in there, like they were on autopilot. Everyone that put money in read the jar, and most of them asked me about it. I think people threw their change in because it gave them a laugh. Story 100. Sold currency from a video game. Played EverQuest in the early 2000s, and I played a wizard. Used for damage and their ability to teleport around the world. They got super scary during a time when they got an ability called Mana Burn. It was the ability to dump all of their mana into one massive blast, usable every 45 minutes. Having the ability to travel anywhere and nuke baddies into oblivion meant that 6 wizards in a group could collectively eliminate some big names dragons that rolled around in the open worlds. So I created that group, would keep track of spawns and collect to blow up the dragons, and then split the loot to sell to people who couldn't eliminate them. Either they weren't powerful enough, or they couldn't collect enough people in time. Most of that loot was sellable in the auction houses, and I spent the whole summer liquidating my stock and selling the currency for real money on a site called Player Auctions. The summer of Mana Burn was fun. Story 101. I was living in China years and years ago. Needed money as I was studying over there. Friend of a friend landed me this gig. I was given MP3 files of American radio station news broadcasts. It was all 1999-2003, the build-up to the Iraq War and related topics. My job was to transcribe all of it and send it to the translator who would put it into Chinese. It was all extremely secretive and weird. I got paid $100 for every 15 minutes I typed up. I can type almost as fast as people can talk. I easily paid for my tuition and then some LOL. Story 102. I had a sugar mommy in college who sent me $200 a week as long as I kept my grades up. She didn't even ask for anything else from me. Story 103. Minted a tweet of an NFT to show my friend how dumb NFTs were. I believe it said something, "NFTs are dumb, who would buy a minted tweet?" During the time he took to put a joke 1 bit on it, someone else paid 20 worth of Bitcoin for it. Story 104. Apparently when my husband was a teen, he kicked what he thought was a rock along the side of the country road he was walking. Turned out to be a roll of 100s. Story 105. Bought a roll of 20x or 3 coins worth 60 if I would spend them, and about 80 for collectors for 40 shipping on eBay. Story 106. My friend's sister said she'd give me $20 to cut my hair off the day before school started at LOL. Easiest $20 I've ever made. Story 107. Instead of the classic girls in bikinis and shirtless guys car wash, we did a most ridiculous costumes you can find on the internet car wash. We were fundraising for our soccer team to get new equipment gear. Then a local company decided to sponsor us instead, and we got to keep the money we made and split it between us. I had the shower curtain costume off Amazon LOL. Story 108. Back when I was in 6th or 7th grade, early 1970s, we were traveling in Maine and stopping at old antique stores. Out front, they often had old boxes of postcards you could buy. I recently had read A Night to Remember about the sinking of the Titanic. It had a photo of the Titanic with a caption on it about its sinking and the loss of lives. It had a postmark on it with the date 6 days after the sinking. The note made no reference to the boat. I bought it for 5 cents. Years later, when the Blockbuster movie came out and eBay was newish, I saw Titanic memorabilia selling there well. I put it up and someone paid more than $350 for my nickel investment. Story 109. Phone numbers in my country changed from 8 digits to 9 digits 10 years ago. All existing mobile numbers had a 9 inserted at the beginning of them. Made an app that updated all contacts on users' phone, adding a 9 to them in one afternoon. Made 100K over 1EM downloads. Story 110. Selling pot in a student neighborhood in a country where plant substance is incredibly illegal. It was stupidly easy to make bank, but so stupid, and I almost got caught multiple times. It's one of those countries in the West with ridiculously strict substances laws, so if caught, I'd probably still be in prison today, a decade later. I ended up quitting when my wholesaler and his whole gang got rolled up. They're still in prison, though they were apparently also involved in human trafficking and harder substances. Decided that was a good time to call it quits, and I left the country a few months later. Wasn't from there anyway. Story 111. Dog sitting a dumbass Shih Tzu who would only do its business if you told it, "Go potty." The darn thing lasted 3 days without taking a dump, let alone shoot, because its shoot owner forgot to mention this when she dropped her dog off with us. This was through Rover. Story 112. I used to churn credit card cash back points pretty hard. Buy $2,500 worth of 500 Visa debit cards at the mall with an unlimited 2% cash back credit card. 3.95 activation fee per card. Use those at the grocery store to buy 3 money orders totaling $2,500 for 0.69 each. Sign and deposit money orders into an online credit union that allowed virtual money order deposits on mobile. Use money and credit union account to pay credit card. All on my way home from work. Wash and repeat 5 days a week, x 6 months. About $1 a minute. Hard to get a money order on a prepaid card anymore, though. That loophole was closed. Story 113. Said welcome at a wedding. They asked me which skills I have. I said none. They asked if I can say welcome. I said really well. I was hired, stood in the lobby and said welcome for 40 minutes. Got paid 200 flight tickets, 2 hotel nights, and got to eat their food and drink their booze for a 2-day wedding. This was in Inner Mongolia. I was considered exotic. Story 114. When I was around 12, I found some blue coarse sand at an alley in the beach club, put it in bottles for no reason and took it home. My neighbor saw it and thought it was the perfect finishing for her beach-themed chest decoration thingy. She bought it from me at a ridiculous price. A couple of years later, I found out it was some toxic additive used for the club pool repainting, but I'm guessing she didn't eat the thing, so no guilt, I guess. Story 115. I was sitting on a bench one day, waiting for my mom to finish buying at the supermarket. Some people started giving me money thinking I was poor, ha 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 ha. Story 116. Was tipsy on St. Paddy's Day. Picked up a plastic leprechaun hat from an alley. Hour or so later, an even drunker guy offered to buy it and handed me 40. Story 117. Not me, but my mom about 40 wires ago. Bought a jacket at a yard sale for CDN1. We used to have $2 bills here in Canada, and lo behold, one was in one of the pockets. Oh, the jacket fit my dad pretty near perfectly, so he wore it for a few years too. Story 118. I thought I'd closed a trade on the NASDAQ one Friday evening, but I'd actually just reversed it from short to long with no stop, naked. I live in Australia, so I caught Friday trading in the US. Overnight, Trump tweeted something about oil and the NASDAQ shot up. On Monday morning, I opened my trading app and was surprised to see I'd made 9,500 AUD by accident. Could easily have gone the other way. Story 119. I did a 4-hour boot camp for folks planting vineyards in their backyard. Magazine split the proceeds with me 50-50. It was 200 and we got 75 people. I made 7,500, almost 2,000 an hour, and I was drinking the whole time. Story 120. In middle school, people were in the smoking, snorting Smarties phase. So I would crush like 2 Smarties, roll it up in little plastic pads, and sell them for 50 cents each bag. I tended to always run out of stock. Story 121. I joined an auto surfer when I was a teenager. It was a Ponzi scheme where you watched ads and earned $12 per day on your investment. I went all in, built an affiliate website, bought ads on Google, promoted the hell out of it in forums. I had 20 people signed up under me and made $10,000 a month. My biggest month was like 20 grand. I was young, naive, so I didn't fully understand. It was a straight-up Ponzi scheme. It lasted over a year until the Fed stepped in and shut it down. Story 122. I bought 2 iPhones at Sprint under their lease plan, then decided to switch back to Android. The representative canceled the lease on the phones and then switched us to Androids, but for some reason never collected the phones, so she told us to mail them in. We had a negative balance of $1,600 on the bill, and they never collected the iPhones. I didn't have a phone bill for a year. Story 123. I have very serious imposter syndrome, so I feel like everything I do for work is dumb and that people don't need me to do my job to get the same results for them. Story 124. A rich lady paid me $500 to wrap the Christmas gifts she bought for her family. I spent like 3 to 4 hours on it. Definitely pretty silly, but definitely worth it. Story 125. One of my neighbors who was very elderly and wheelchair-bound saw me outside mowing my lawn, and he got my attention and told me, "If I gave you a hammer, could you help me out?" Morbidly curious, I said it would depend on how fast the cops would respond. He laughed his jerk off and told me that, "No, there's a nail in the wall in front of the door that's bugging me. Can you yank it out for me?" So he handed me a claw hammer. I pulled the nail. He gave me a 100 bill. I told him no way, but he was like, please take it. Your fingerprints on the hammer were worth every penny." That made him laugh even harder than before. That was 10 years ago, and I'm still on edge when I hear sirens lol. Story 126. I'm not sure it counts as dumb because it was effective, but in middle school, I sold Charms Blow Pop lollipops to other kids in school. I sold them for 25 cents each and was buying them 16 to a bag for 75 cents. So I was making bank. This went on for months until the school made a new rule forbidding students from selling candy to other students. I was the only one doing it, so it was clear they were shutting me down. In high school, I reopened my business, but changed from lollipops to adult content. I would sell the latest issue of Playboy or Penthouse for 20, and I was buying them for 5. I'd also sell VHS tapes with 3 movies on it for 20. I was renting them at a local video store under their 2 for Tuesday deal, so I paid 3 for 2 movies, took them home, copied them, and returned them. People would pick out which 3 movies they wanted from my growing list of available titles. My adult content resale business paid for my first car when I was 16. I should note this was in the 80s, long before free internet adult content. I also have always looked older than I am. I started up adult content resale my sophomore year, when I grew a beard, and stores all assumed I was over 18. When my friends found out I was getting adult content for myself, they started asking me to buy for them, and it grew from there. Story 127. My wife's first time at a horse race. She picked a horse because the colors were nice and the name was cute. She won €450. Story 128. Feet pics. LOL. Also, these loose flowers picked up from a bunch transferred to and from this string of flower shops near where I lived when I was little. I picked them up and tied them into one bouquet and then sold it at a very low price. 100 profit. LOL. Story 129. Call options on SPACs, cannabis, and Chinese electric vehicles not long after COVID hit was up 40K 3 straight months in a row, but I never sold and lost it all when the Fed started talking interest rate hikes and the market reversed. Story 130. I worked for a music store in the 70s playing the Lowry Magic Genie organ, wearing a genie costume, think Barbara Eden, in a tent at the county fair. I had just started my first year of college, and I swear everyone I went to high school with was at that fair. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.